Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I am on the biggest soccer hangover I have ever had. When you step back into the game, sometimes it is hard to keep up. I watched soccer every single night from Wednesday to Sunday of last week. Of course, because it was Rivalry Week, right? Now, I know I went through this whole rigmarole about Rivalry Week being cliched, overhyped business. However, we had quite the week of soccer. I'll give you a little bit of a recap, and then I want to tell you the playoff chances for teams in the East and West of note. First, high point of Rivalry Week was Josef Martinez with Atlanta United scoring his 28th goal of the season, making him the record breaker for all-time goals in a single season. And it was done in the cheekiest way against Orlando, who is currently, they took our place at the very bottom of the Eastern Conference table.
PC on his heels. Now there is Josef Martinez. Martinez cuts. Martinez! Yes! There it is! The single season scoring record was crowded at the top. Now there can be only one.
Now and forevermore, you're gonna hear me, and I'm gonna tell you, Boom, Venezuela!
And a low point, Chicago Fire outdid themselves, drawing a record-breaking crowd of 8,500 people. Those 8,500 people were there to witness the fact that they turned their 8-game losing streak into a 9-game winless streak against Columbus Crew. The Crew were pretty lucky to equalize, and they remain in a pretty safe spot at number 4 in the East. And they weren't the only team to draw this week. Texas Derby, Dallas and Houston, 1-1 draw. El Trafico, LA Galaxy and LAFC, 1-1 draw. And New York Red Bulls at New York City FC on Wednesday. Despite the fact that New York City went down 2 men, they got 2 red cards. Now, speaking of cards, we racked them up this week. No other stat will tell you that it was Rivalry Week other than this one. We had 4 red cards shared by 2 teams. 2 teams were down by 2 men this week. And we had 46 yellow cards. 46. DC United's game was one of 2 Sunday night matchups against the Red Bulls, who were coming off a pretty disappointing game on Wednesday where they weren't able to capitalize on the 9-man squad that New York City had, and you could tell they were in for a fight. The Red Bulls were unable to move up in the rankings. They are still at number 2 in the East. We lost after a pretty well-deserved slammer from Kaku.
Tchaikovsky. The cross cleared, not out. Kaku thinking about it. Now the shot. What a goal from Kaku! 1-0 Red Bulls.
Pretty disappointing for DC, but not nearly as disappointing as the game that followed. The Portland Timbers hosted Seattle. Seattle was on their 6-game win streak, and Portland was, of course, hoping for some great momentum on the field, being at home at Providence Park. They definitely win Best Tifo. Check out how creepy this It Tifo is. Now, Portland also outpossessed, outmaneuvered, out-hustled, and outran Seattle at almost every turn. They even outscored Seattle with this awful, cringeworthy goal. This own goal by Cascante.
He's got the space, he's running it, no one's closing him down. Now his cross is an own goal off of Cascante. Seattle carve open the Timbers defense on the break. And they take the lead with less than 15 minutes to go.
It's just incredible, isn't it? And right now, William Ridgewell, he gets caught in 2 minds. Do I come? Do I close it down? Instead, he picks neither. Doesn't stop the cross coming in. Cascante doesn't get his feet right. Takes a swipe at it in the back of the net.
Ugh, it's so bad. And the worst part is watching him after the fact. Because of that loss, Portland Timbers are now outside of the playoff cutoff, and Seattle are in. Whether or not that remains We will certainly find out, and we have about 9 or 10 weeks left. This lengthens Portland's losing streak to 4, extends Seattle's winning streak to 7. Now, a 1-0 loss with an own goal that's all your fault seems pretty rough. What's even crazier was the Rocky Mountain Cup. RSL traveled to Colorado this weekend, and what seems to be a pretty competitive game took a nasty turn right before the second half. Nicky Jackson, a young forward who was picked in the draft by Colorado this year, got his first start on his birthday and picks up a red card in the 9th minute. This is the other game I mentioned where there were 2 red cards issued to one team. Colorado then picked up a second red card by midfielder Nana Boateng. That happened all in the first half, and RSL went up by 2 goals. The second half was an utter mess. Colorado, who had kept it together, had been pushing RSL pretty high, ended up giving up 4 more goals. Now, I don't know if you remember who plays keeper for Colorado. Tim Howard. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Oh, watching him give up 1 goal makes me feel uncomfortable, but watching him give up that many goals, I thought his head was about to explode.
Bodies in the middle. Platter pulls back to Krylec. And it's 1-0. Retrieves. Savarino on the angle. And it's 2-0 Real Salt Lake. They could be punished at the other end. Savarino has made it 3-0. Back with Acosta. An easy one there for Platter. Platter for 4. To Acosta. Floating one to the far post. Back to Baird. Baird, can he get it under control? It's now 5-0. Baird over the top to Rusnak for number 6.
I have a really hard time watching Colorado for that reason, and they already had a 3-goal deficit to make up for in order to win the Rocky Mountain Cup back. There was no way to predict that it was going to turn into a 6-0 loss. Oh, poor Tim Howard. Poor buddy. Now we have covered the first half of my notes for Rivalry Week. I won't give too many previews of the upcoming week. I will say Sporting Kansas City are not in town. I'm pretty bummed. My sister Kelsey is visiting from Utah. I was hoping to show her a game at Sporting Park, but they traveled to Seattle. We'll see if Seattle can keep up that winning streak they've got, because Sporting Kansas City, they travel pretty well and they're on a total tear. Although I went to the game on Saturday. Insert some of my footage here. Okay, so the next part of my notes are playoff chances. Playoff chances for the East and West. Atlanta is DC United's next opponent. Now,
you idiot, we play Philadelphia tonight. It's a double game week. Arguably a better matchup than DC and Atlanta. This is why people do podcasts. Oh well, just freeze frame, add the audio. No one will notice. All right, let's roll.
Atlanta doesn't have much to gain or lose in terms of playoff chances, but what they want is the supporter shield. They will always be in a little bit of a battle with New York Red Bulls, and it may come down to goal differential. New York Red Bulls and Seattle are 2 of the top teams that have not allowed that many goals this season so far. We are in the fight of our lives for a playoff berth. We are currently under the cutoff line. Actually, are we?
You idiot.
I don't know. I will say, playing Atlanta isn't that big of a deal to Atlanta, but it is a huge deal to us. And do you want to know what benefit we have? Bill Hamid. He is back, and Atlanta have never beat us when we have Bill Hamid. 538, who I normally follow for politics, does do some sports predictions, and they currently put DC at a 54% chance of making the playoffs. For the remainder of the season, most of our games are at home. So in terms of making the playoffs, I think we have the advantage here. So the Eastern Conference is what I would call the winners and losers. Eastern Conference teams who are losing are playing these bomb Eastern Conference teams. New York City, New York Red Bulls, Atlanta. It is very widespread at the top. Atlanta has almost 10 points more than FC Dallas, the top team in the West, and over 20 points separates them from 1st and 6th place. The Western Conference, however, is what I call the Wild Wild West. Now, anything goes for the Western Conference. The top 6 slots are so compact that any given week, everything can shift. They're all kind of just floating in the middle. It could be anybody's game. Although I do find it interesting that FC Dallas would currently rank 4th if they were in the Eastern Conference. I have to admit, East is best. Maybe that makes it really hard for DC United to make it, but at least I know that we're competing with real quality. Offense intended to the Western Conference. Now, I say all that, and we have teams in the East like Chicago and Orlando who essentially have no chance of making the playoffs. Chicago really doesn't seem to care anymore. In fact, after playing to a crowd of 8,500 on Thursday night, they have shut down their schedule, will not be playing for the next 3 weeks, and as a team flew to Germany this week in order for them to honor Bastian Schweinsteiger with a farewell memorial game against Bayern Munich, his original team. Chicago played them in a friendly where Basti played with Chicago for the first half and Bayern for the second. And Bayern ended up winning 4-0. I get that teams in MLS took an international break, but Chicago full-blown took a 3-week break for a friendly, and then I guess to rest up. I don't know, take a September vacation. I mean, you're not making the playoffs anyway. I bet you Schweinsteiger is gonna retire this year. I mean, that's what that means, right? But with all of that, I gotta say, pleasure talking about soccer. Look forward to everyone continuing to fight for a playoff spot. And I might preview some more games before the week's end. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram for that, at BTWNCleanSheets. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
Our soccer.